Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Well, happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. Nielsen and Hustler with you. Thank you very much for joining us. If you are watching on the live stream, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Just search The Lock Shop, whether you're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, Google Podcasts, you should be able to find The Lock Shop. If for some reason you can't, make sure you slide into our DMs on Twitter and let us know. And if you have not yet signed up for an account at Coolbet, you want to do that right away. Go to coolbet.com and use the code LOCKSHOP when you do sign up. Huss, what's up, my man?
Well, what is up? Big day today, Dusty. I've already had quite the day, actually. This evening, I will be interviewing the NFL's all-time leading rusher, Emmitt Smith, at the Rady dinner here in Winnipeg. It's sold out. It's going to be a great event. Pretty fired up to be involved in that.
Are you hosting it type of thing and then interviewing him, or how's that work? Like,
well, my good friend and former colleague at TSN, at our former station, Matt Leibel, the rabbi, is the MC of the event, and they have leaned on me to come in, and the two of us were going to do a little bit of a tag team on the NFL's all-time leading rusher. So it's great. I don't actually have to do all the MCing stuff. I just get to go in and do the stuff with Emmitt. So it's going to be perfect. But funny story. You'll see I've had a little bit of helmet reduction today. Got the haircut this morning. Showed it to my guy Jeremy at Hunter and Gun. Little early today, so I got out. I was coming back in. I'm walking down the street. Started raining a bit, and I took a freaking tidal wave from a city of Winnipeg bus. All I could do was laugh. All I could do was laugh. I wasn't paying attention. I'm walking down the street, and this bus comes through. And as I said, I'm not exaggerating when I said it was a tidal wave. If it had happened to if I had seen this happen to somebody else, I would still be laughing right now. So again, at some point you just have to have a good attitude about the pitfalls that come your way. I had one this morning, but yeah, no, it's good. Just hooked up with Chris Nyland for Winnipeg Sports Talk today. But I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you, because that game last night was maybe the NHL's version of the Undertaker gif right in front of our eyes. Colorado gets destroyed on Saturday. Yeah. They look good early on, get that goal disallowed, get up again. And you thought, oh man, here we go again. And then a complete flip in that hockey game and potentially the series. So what did you think of last night?
That was wild, man. When I saw the start that Colorado had, I mean, everybody leading into game 3, everybody was asking, it's like, oh, it's all going to come down to the start. Can't really let Colorado get out and running. And Colorado did kind of get out and run a little bit. And then Tampa Bay fired back. So, I like Tampa in the series. I thought, the big advantage in between the pipes with Vasilevsky. But I watched those first 2 games and sitting there watching Colorado. I'm just going, my God, maybe Colorado's just that good. Maybe Colorado is just this good. So I guess, having faith in Tampa at the beginning, maybe I shouldn't have bailed on them so quickly, because they don't lose at home. I mean, they've won, 8 in a row at home during this whole playoff run they've had over the last few years. They've been excellent on home ice. And, the guys that needed to get it done for them, got it done for them last night. Huss, like, after game 2, it was Stamkos saying, and what, he was one of the guys who faced the media, says just one game, simply not acceptable. He came out, had a great game in game 3. So I'm very interested to see if that's like the one-off and Colorado wins it in 5 and they get back to dominating and carrying the pace of the play, or if, Colorado now starts to doubt themselves a little bit. It's only the 3rd loss of the entire playoffs. So, I mean, that kind of brings us into game 4, and we'll get to it right away. We got some CFL stuff, Travelers, little NBA draft leans that we'll get to. But, I don't know. What are you expecting from game 4 coming out of game 3, buddy?
I mean, first off, I'm so happy they won last night in the way they did, because now we have a series. I mean, I was as stunned as anybody from Saturday night. I mean, we were out at the lake with some buddies and got the game on at the cottage, and I'm like, is this really happening? I mean, it was just an absolute thrashing. And you did wonder what we would see from Tampa tonight. I mean, last night, it was, in a lot of ways, it was sort of their last stand. But I had Dave Poulin on the show yesterday, and Poulin and I were saying, I mean, you'd be nuts to count Tampa Bay out. And crazy enough is, a lot of people did that, but they showed why they have been, the team that has been the pinnacle of the National Hockey League for the last 3 years last night. Now, what happens in game 4, I'm not sure. And this is part of the reason why for our picks, I'm not going to take a side, but I'm actually going to go with the over, which right now is plus 105 at over 6. And of course, that includes overtime as well. So, I mean, if it's a 3-3 game, you've won your bet because there will be a game in OT.
Yeah.
And listen, a couple reasons why I like this bet. Number one, listen, as brilliant as Vasilevsky is, even in a game last night, which was for the most part dominated by Tampa, they scored 2 goals. They had another one disallowed. Like, I don't see almost in any circumstances Vasilevsky putting up the goose egg, or keeping them down. Like, I think Tampa, if they're going to win, are going to need to score goals like they did last night. But I also think something clicked with the Lightning last night when it comes to, first of all, beating Darcy Kemper and getting that offensive mojo back. The over's gone hit in all 3 games so far this series. And when you look at the firepower of both of these teams, and especially the ability for Colorado to get a few past Vasilevsky, I mean, I think we're going to continue seeing a really entertaining series that has a lot of goals in it. So, with the number at 6, I might be less, bullish on this at 6.5, but I'm going to take the over. We're getting plus money on it. I was a little surprised at that considering what's happened so far. And as far as the game right now, which is just a straight pick 'em, I mean, I think I have to ride with the Lightning. I was on the Lightning at the beginning of the series. I think the way they lost game 2 freaked a lot of people out and got tons of people off, but we saw what this team was made of last night. I don't think that was just a one-off. I mean, will it be a closer game? Probably. I would be surprised if it wasn't, to be honest. But I think if I had to go on one side or the other of the money line, I'd roll with Tampa being already somewhat pot committed on it. But listen, these teams can both score goals, and they've been doing it so far this series. I'm going to take over 6. Right now, it's at plus 105, so it's actually gone up a little bit since I made it late last night.
I look at it. I'm on Tampa money line in game 4. I mean, they've been excellent at home. I'm very intrigued to see how Colorado bounces back. Does Darcy Kemper, I don't view Darcy Kemper as the type of goalie that's going to get that net back in game 4 and stand on his head. I view Darcy Kemper as the type of guy who gets that name back in game 4 and hopes that his team plays really good in front of him. Because if they don't, Darcy Kemper's not stealing you games against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't think that's going to be the case. So I think there's a little bit of a seed of doubt that has to now be placed in the rest of that Colorado team with their goaltender Darcy Kemper in behind them. And I would have been on Tampa anyway in this situation, I think. I love getting money line here at minus 104. I think it's great value for a team that just doesn't get beaten on home ice. And, hey, maybe this is the time that it happens. And if it is, then I'll, eat crow on this one. But I'm going to ride with the Tampa Bay Lightning here at home, minus 104, to make this thing a series. And, Colorado faced a little bit of adversity against St. Louis, but not much. And then nothing the rest of the way in the playoffs. So I don't even know if we can really know or read into how we expect them to respond coming into this game. So I'm really looking forward to it. And you're right, that game 2, with the way game 2 went, game 1, Colorado was up 3-1. Tampa came back, forced overtime. Right. And then, all you're going to talk about coming out of those first 2 games is a huge blowout in game 2. So game 2 was certainly an excellent performance from Colorado. I'm also not sure you'll see Tampa play that bad again in this series. So if you would have told me that this series was 2-1 right now and you didn't tell me the scores, I'd sit here and go, man, Tampa Bay at home, minus 104 in game 4. That's crazy value. So I think it still is. So I'm going to hop on that, buddy.
Yeah, and I mean, as of right now, I'm looking at CoolBet. I mean, it is a straight up pick 'em. I mean, you got a little bit better of a number at minus 104. It's now minus 109 on both sides, basically coin flip. I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether that moves at all. I wouldn't be surprised if we basically go into tomorrow night very similar as we did last night with the straight up pick 'em with the game. And listen, Lightning at home in the playoffs essentially is a pick 'em against anybody. I don't know how you don't take that. So yeah. I'm with you on Tampa. Interesting note on the series price. And I talked about this yesterday on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We were breaking it down because Tampa was at plus 380 to win the series. But then if you got dug down into the exact series result, it was to win 4-3 plus 850 and to win 4-2 like they did against the Rangers after dropping the first 2 games was plus 1,700. And there's a couple of people asking about, jumping on the Lightning right now if we thought that they could win. And I said, well, listen, if you were going to do that, what you're better off doing is taking that, instead of betting $100, for instance, to win 380 on Tampa to win the series, split it up 50-50 and put 50 of it on to win 4-2 at plus 1,700 and 50 of it to win 4-3 at plus 850. Essentially, you're getting the same number if you bet the series, if they win in 7. And if for some reason they're able to rattle off 4 in a row, you're ended up getting basically more than double on it right now. So it's interesting to pay attention to once you get to these series, both the series, just the number, as well as how that might, break out into the exact series results, because you actually can maybe get better value on your money. That being said, I want Tampa to win this game. Give us a best of 3, and let's take it the distance, because this series has been that good. These teams are that much fun to watch, and series has delivered so far. Although we just had the one really close game in game number 1, and then 2 sort of blowouts each way in games 2 and 3.
Yeah, this would be disappointing if it only goes 5. I think Tampa's going to force this thing to go a little bit longer than that. So hopefully they get that done, and hopefully we can cash on the over 6 in game 4. I did take a look. If you feel confident enough to go over 6.5, I think it's plus 132 would be that number right now if you do want to adjust it from 6 to 6.5, which you can do, of course, over at coolbet.com. All right, let's slide over to the Canadian Football League, where we will take a kind of a quick look at where these lines are at right now. But let's just start with that Thursday Nighter Hustle, where the line has moved. You sent me your pick last night, Montreal plus 2.5. And I'm going to go on the other side of this thing with the Riders, and the line right now is set at 3. So I'm on the Riders minus 3. That's what I locked in this morning. I would have loved them at 2.5, to be honest with you. If I can have that option to adjust it at some point, I probably will. But right now, the Riders minus 3 at minus 114, and you've got the Owls plus 2.5 at minus 110. Vernon Adams Jr. has not practiced the last 2 days in a row, but they do have another veteran quarterback there in Trevor Harris. So why are you on Montreal in this one, buddy?
Well, you know what? I think this is more of a spot game. Listen, Saskatchewan's been good so far this year. They've got the 2-0, and, they looked really good in week 1. And, you'd be a better person really to speak to the way they looked on Saturday. But, they were trailing with, 5 minutes left in the game and had to, pull it out late against a team that's just not very good. Now, Montreal deserved to win that football game last week against Toronto. I still can't believe in the annals of choke jobs on short field goals to win games. That was almost the CFL version of the Blair Walsh kick for the Viking fans. Sorry to trigger everybody. It was a 21-yarder to win the game, and it never even had a chance. Montreal's good. Montreal's defense is good. I thought that they played quite well, and even without Standback right now, I do think that they can move the football, and they did it at a crucial time of the game, late in the 4th, to get back into that, erase the 10-point deficit, and give them a chance to win. But the other side of it is the Riders. Now, the Riders played Saturday night. This is a Thursday game. It's a quick turnaround. They're playing on a very, very short week, and they're traveling across the country to play a team that, to be honest with you, should at least be 1-1 right now. And I think feels like they really need to come up big. It's also their home opener. I think they'll be, as far as we've seen some great support for some of the teams so far in home openers, certainly nothing like in BC. But I just think Montreal will be able to. I actually like them to win this game. We always look back and do the same thing with the Bombers. Bombers have this great season. Where did they lose? They lost on a short week, and they were traveling out to the East. They were a favorite on the road, and it didn't happen. I could see that happening right now for Montreal, and certainly for Kahari's team. They will be playing with a serious sense of urgency, I think, right now at 0-2, despite the fact that the Argos, with their win over Montreal, is the only win on the board right now in the Eastern Division so far. So, and the fact that we can get it now at even a better number with plus 3 and actually minus 105, who knows? You might be best to wait and just kind of pay attention to this number over the course of the next day, because I'll tell you what, if you could possibly get it to 3.5 with Montreal, I can feel even better about it right now. But yeah, my plus 3 right now at Cool Bet. Last night it was plus 2.5. To be anything, the line movement, all that does with me is maybe make it a little more enticing to jump on the money line. But I think this is a tough spot game for Saskatchewan, despite the fact that they've looked good, especially their defense early on.
Yeah, you convinced me a little bit more than no, you haven't swung me the entire way here. I'm still going to ride with the Riders. But the spot play is an interesting way to look at this from a Riders perspective. I didn't think they played well in that game against the Elks at all, and they still found a way to win. And, last year, their offense, 7th in the league, didn't get Duke Williams so late in the year, missing Evans the majority of the season. They didn't have a lot of weapons. Jamal Morrow this last game, and we'll have to see how this Elks defense pans out because Butler ran all over him, and then Jamal Morrow ran all over them as well. But the one thing, my big play here, and reason why I'm probably going to stick with the Riders on this is I think the Riders defense is legit. Like, I think the Riders defense causes a lot of concern for Trevor Harris. And I would assume Harris is getting this start. If Vernon Adams hasn't practiced, what's today, Tuesday already? He hasn't practiced yet. I'd have to think Trevor Harris, who came into that last game anyway, is going to get the start here. And I think the Riders, like every aspect of their defense, I really like. All 3 levels, which I don't think you can say about a lot of teams in the CFL. Like the BC Lions, for example. Lions, linebacking core, terrific. Secondary, insane. Defensive line probably needs a little bit of work. Why have the Bombers been so good for the last few years? Every single level of that defense is legit, and I'm not putting the Riders at that Bombers level from the last couple of years, but I do think their defense is probably as deep as it comes in the Canadian Football League. So you go up against a Montreal team that doesn't have its biggest weapon in Stanback and will have a quarterback that's less mobile than the one guy who's been sick this week and hasn't been able to practice. I'm going to stick with the Riders in this one. And until I see somebody in the East have success against somebody in the West, I'm gonna ride the West until this thing bucks me, Huss. I did want to point out, if you do like the Alouettes, I mean, you said it, +2.5, take them to win. +125 on the money line to win this game if you do like the Alouettes that much.
Yeah, it was +120 last night when we were kind of cooking up the picks. And as I said, the half, we kind of talk about line movements, and we'll get into these other games in a second. The movement from 2.5 to 3 is very significant. And for it to happen this early and now for it to be +3 at -105 certainly tells us we might get it to 3.5 or maybe 4. So as I said, if you do like me, you're on the Owls, give it a few hours, see what it's like later on tonight, because as I said, considering where it's trending right now, you might be able to get an even better number at some point before kickoff on Thursday.
All right, well, let's take a look quickly at the rest of the CFL schedule. We'll give you our picks on Friday, obviously. But Bombers, as of right now, and it's 11:28 on Tuesday morning, Bombers are a 5.5-point favorite over the Ticats. Totals at 43.5. Stampeders are an 8-point favorite against Edmonton. That totals at 49. And then the BC Lions are a 4.5-point favorite against the Argos, and that total sits at 48. Huss, any early thoughts on these 3 games? And do you think, and we saw it last week, some significant line movement around the league, are you expecting to see that again when we look at these numbers right now?
Well, certainly not like we saw last week. And I wanted to bring this up because when we were chatting on Tuesday, a week ago today, the Bombers opened up as 6.5-point favorites in Ottawa, which seemed like an insane number considering the game that they just played in Winnipeg. When we did the show, it was 6. By the time we got to kickoff, Dusty, it was 1. And what's interesting about that is the Bombers probably didn't have any business winning that game by 7 points, but they did. And they covered on any ticket, no matter what you had. That would have been a great day for Coolbet, because when you're moving a line from 6.5 to 1, that means that there's an avalanche of money going on the team that, it's sliding in favor to. So it actually sort of worked out. I had the +6 on Ottawa and then jumped on Winnipeg at -1 and on the money line. And so it ended up kind of being a bit of a wash compared to it before, but you had that opportunity for a big middle. The Ticat Bomber game is interesting. The Bombers are 5.5-point favorites right now, as you mentioned. The Ticats, certainly they don't look like the team that was the favorite in last year's Grey Cup so far. I mean, 0-2. Dane Evans has struggled. They've turned the football over quite a bit, and they have had a hell of a time protecting their quarterback, especially in week 1 against Saskatchewan. Now, the Bomber offense has been relatively pedestrian so far. I think they're still working through missing Kenny Lawler and Andrew Harris. But it's the Bomber defense that stepped up, especially in the second half of that Ottawa game. We'll see where things at. We won't make a pick right now. If anything, I think this might inch maybe closer to a touchdown. And certainly the status of Dane Evans will be huge. There's no Jeremiah Masoli there anymore. So if he is limited or, God knows, not able to play, I think it's a huge, huge win in Winnipeg's side of things. But we saw what the Bomber defense is like, especially with Jackson Jeffcoat, who returned in and had that big fumble, forced fumble late in the game to win. As far as the other games right now, Calgary's 8-point favorites over the Elks. It seems like a big number to me. I mean, I still, and I'll just tell you a quick story. As I said, I was out at the lake on the weekend and we didn't have cable TV. We did have an NHL package on the phone. And I still don't understand how the hell you're supposed to hook up the tsn.go or whatever, like probably half the country. So I was listening to the game between Hamilton and Calgary, and I'm listening to it. We've just been golfing. We're chilling out there, and it's 24-3 at halftime. And I'm like, okay, well, we know what's happening with this game, and then turn on the hockey and watch the game. And I went back and checked my Twitter. There was some tweet from someone in Calgary going, for all of you that were shitting on Bo Levi after the first half, you got to give him credit now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And went in and saw the way they turned around. So listen, I didn't see what had happened, but that is a big time comeback for the Calgary Stampeders and big for Bo Levi Mitchell, who I think was really feeling the heat with Jake Maier on his tail. 8-point favorites against Edmonton. Oh, man, I know Edmonton has looked bad. They haven't covered in either of their first two games, but that game, maybe we'll see a number go even higher, and then you just basically have to take the points with the underdog. We'll see that. And then I don't know about BC against Toronto. I have a feeling that the Argos, are going to be in that game. I'll tell you what, I'll tip my hand. I think I'll probably be taking Toronto in that game as far as certainly against the spread. Because as much as they look great in that first game, I don't think we're going to be seeing the Lions put up more 50 burgers going on, especially against a team like the Argos. So I'm not sure. And what about you when you look at that? Is there one side you think that if you want to get on, you should do it now?
That total, no. I mean, that 4, I think, is a pretty tough number right now in that Argos-Lions game. I'm going to be doing that game. It's one of the 2 games I got this week. I do think BC wins that game, though. Minus 200 on the money line. I don't love that value. So, I mean, I'd probably try to adjust the line down a little bit. So the Lions like minus 2.5 if I can when it's all said and done. But I think BC, I like their defense a ton. I mean, I know Rourke's not going to do what he did last week every week, but I think he's going to be good. You're going to have some hiccups along the way. I don't know what to make of the Argos just yet. I know, there seems to be a lot of not hype. It's almost like you're not sure what the rest of the East is, so everybody seems to like the Argos out there. And I just haven't had a chance. Even last year, I didn't get a chance to watch them. A little bit of an issue there. So I don't know where to go on that number right now. I'm wondering, do you think that Elks 8 is as big as it gets? Or do you think that still moves a little bit? Because Edmonton,
that's what I'm saying.
They were leading against the Riders, but
people won't remember that. People won't remember that at all. They're just going to look and see, well, they got embarrassed in week 1, and then they lost by double digits at home. And now they're going on the road playing against a 2-0 team. Like, if I had to guess, it's not getting any smaller, I don't think. And I wouldn't be surprised if it got to 9 or 9.5. The one thing that you'll see, the majority of these line movements on CFL are happening on game day. Not as many D-gens is devoted to the 3-down game like us who are on these lines on Monday and Tuesday, which gives you a great opportunity to get in, early on in the week. But as we saw with the Bomber game, I mean, it was 3, it was 3.5, and then boom, on game day, it was 1. And it all happened quite quickly. So I don't know. I have a feeling that Edmonton is going to be nearly a double-digit underdog by the time this game kicks off, maybe around 9 or so.
Yeah.
But I think I'll probably hold off to do it. I do think that there's some potential in Edmonton that they can, keep this game close and be in it right now. And I'll tell you what, I mean, if they want to be even a factor in the second half of the season, they got to mix in a win or so, because no one else in the West has lost a game right now. And Edmonton's sitting there at 0-2 now, heading on the road as a near double-digit underdog.
All right. Once again, we'll give you the rest of our picks on Friday for those 3 games that we kind of just discussed with some early leans there. It's good to be talking football again, man. I cannot wait till we get that situation where we got both leagues on the go and it's just a wild and crazy football show.
Are you back in the peg on Friday? Are you back here?
I'm back. Yeah, I've got so quick. The back-to-backs are tough, but yeah, I'm in Winnipeg Friday night, and then I'm flying out to Vancouver first thing in the morning to do that game too. So week 1 and week 3, the old Winnipeg, Vancouver back-to-back, buddy.
You know, it's hilarious. Well, I mean, we're going to have to talk because we're going to do our show down at Little Brown Jug on Friday afternoon. And I was figuring that I would be doing, would hooking up with you wherever you are. But who knows? Maybe we do the lock shop down there too, depending on how busy your day is earlier on. We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I wouldn't mind checking this place out. I've heard so much about it. So, yeah.
Stay tuned to our Twitter feeds for details on that. But for you Winnipeg folks, I can tell you, we'll be doing a lock shop beforehand, whether we're in the same place or otherwise. But 1 o'clock Friday afternoon, 1 to 3, we'll do a WST live down at Little Brown Jug in the Exchange on William Avenue. And then probably hang around for a pint or 2 afterwards, although I know you'll have to recuse yourself from that considering you got to work Friday night.
I'll have to be on TV shortly after that. All right, let's slide over to Travelers Championship. Hey, U.S. Open, buddy. I mean, I think we got to hit on that. That was quite the event.
Well, it was an incredible finish. I was very disappointed in my guy Rombo. I to think that he was on the 18th tee on Saturday at -5 with a 1-shot lead, and then doubled the 18th hole at a tough bunker shot where he didn't get it out. And then I was stunned at how things did not go for him. I mean, he couldn't sink a putt, was having a tough time, with the irons, and that obviously I was very much invested in Jon Rahm, but I really expected him to be there at the end. But lo and behold, it's Will Zalatoris again, the bridesmaid. I mean, listen, the guy's had such a great last 18 months, kind of emerging on tour, getting his tour card, but to come up so close in 3 majors has been devastating. And what can you say about Matty Fitzpatrick? I mean, this is a guy that, we've talked about. I had him at the Canadian Open the week before. This is a theme we're going to get to, which is going to ride with a couple of my picks. But man, was he good. 17 of 18 greens on Sunday. I mean, that was just, it was masterful. And, he still looks like hasn't aged much since he won the Am there in 2013. He's got the braces on and, but man, he's hitting it about a 50 yards faster. He was 13th in driving distance, that little guy. So I'm a big Fitz fan. A really cool story about his caddy finally getting to be a guy in the majors. And how about that golf course too? I mean, 34 years is too long to get back to the country club at Brookline. That is a truly amazing U.S. course that gave them, I mean, ultimately challenging. We always know that the U.S. Open is the toughest test in golf. Frustrated a lot of the top players in the world. Sent a few packing to the Live Tour. See you later, Brooks. We're done. We're broken up. But now we're back at it, the Travelers.
See you later.
And I'll tell you what, the Travelers, this just goes to show you how committed I think these players are that are staying on the PGA Tour. When you look at the lineup, the field this week, usually the week after a major, you're seeing a big drop off. And a lot of the big guys go to do elsewhere. Not this week. Rory, Scheffler, JT, Cantlay, Burns, Xander Schauffele, Spieth, Spinell, Neiman. I mean, this is a heck of a field right now for a tournament the week after the majors. And, I know they've lost Reed and DeChambeau. Ironically, I mean, this Brooks, and I wonder if Brooks and DeChambeau will be on the same team in Live Golf.
Will they draft each other?
Yeah. What a circus. Great news, though. Morikawa not going today. There was a lot of rumors that he might be there. That would have been devastating to the tour. I mean, he's such a young double major winner. I mean, a young.
He's not wavering on it either, Huss. Like, he came out and said, the rumors are not true. I'm not going anywhere. Let me get to my cereal today. So I thought that was huge news because a lot of the names that they've lost so far, I mean, I don't care. I'm not going to be searching down the Live the Live series to watch Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, I really like the talent that's coming up on the PGA side of things, and I love the fact that Rory's been so passionate about saying that he's going to stay. Morikawa's passionate as well. So so far there hasn't been one name where I've been like, no. There's a few guys that I'm like, that's disappointing. But for most part, I'm done with these guys who are going there anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hey, just quickly on Morikawa. What did you have to think about his take that he was now about to put the cereal into his milk? Milk first guy. Well, where are you at on that?
Never made sense to me. Never made sense to me. I'm very much a pour the cereal first guy. However, I do go pretty heavy with the milk after. So I could very easily pour a huge bowl of milk and just throw some cereal in it. But I've never executed it that way. But I know, like, when I'm done my cereal, I like to have about that much milk still left in the bowl so I can have a nice drink of that sugar milk. But from my wife, she sometimes goes, why do you put so much milk in your cereal? Because I go heavy on it. I'm a huge milk fan. But I have never once in my life poured the milk and then poured the cereal in. However, I have poured the milk on the cereal, ate all of the cereal, had leftover milk, and then poured more cereal in to help finish it off.
There you go. Well, you know, with all those, what are you hitting these days? Count Chocula, Frankenberry? What?
Pretty much. I've been on Fruit Loops for 35 years, buddy. Hey, so I don't eat anything else. The only cereal I eat is Fruit Loops.
I thought you might drop a Trix reference in there as well. Trix for Kids and Dustin Nielsen.
Pretty much. Oh my goodness. Hey, so I look at the Travelers here, and we're kind of chalky here. I mean, we're among the top 15, 20 guys, right?
I would say so. I mean, yeah, basically. I mean, you've got three, you've got your big three. Rory's at 9, Scheffler's at 10, JT's at 11, Cantlay at 14, and then Burns and Schauffele at 18. Very different than last tournament where, I mean, basically you had those top three and then everyone else was in the 20s. But it just speaks to how solid the field is. I'm going to roll with Scotty Scheffler for my main pick. I mean, he's week in and week out, he's there. I mean, we talked about him losing in a playoff to Burns a couple weeks ago with his C game. And, I mean, he could have easily won that tournament as well and made it a second major. So, considering his body of work and the way he looked last week, I'm going to just keep riding with Scotty Scheffler at 10-1. But my other two picks, you're going to think, oh, Dustin, did you just not change the screen from last week? No, both Tony Finau and Sungjae Im disappointed me. But listen, this is exactly what happened to me the week before with Matthew Fitzpatrick. When I took him at the RBC, he looked good, and then I got off of him. I'm not making that same mistake. Take it for whatever you need. This has happened 3 times so far this year, folks. So I am taking the 2 guys that I picked last week that disappointed me, that I normally would jump off of maybe this week, and I'm putting them right back on the card at 28-1, Tony Finau and Sungjae Im. I did have a thought about Keegan Bradley. He, of course, is a Northeast guy. He was playing very well, was right there in the mix. He's at 33-1. But this is sort of a tournament. I'm really focused in on Scotty Scheffler, and then I'm going to throw a bet on Tony Finau and Sungjae Im to try to reverse or take advantage of, at least, of the fact that I seem to be picking the right guys the week before on the schedule. I'm just doing a pause. I'm moving my picks up a week and trying to get back on track.
I'm going back to one of my picks from last week as well with Sam Burns. He's at 18-1. I mean, he's been red hot. It's just that simple. And at this event, he's 3 for 3 with the cut and has gotten better every single year, including a T13 last year. So he's been getting better the more he's played TPC River Highlands, and he's obviously been one of the best golfers on the tour so far this year. I had him last week. It didn't work out. He was around it. So I'm going to go back to Burns here at plus 1,800. Xander plus 1,800 as well. He has had a pair of top 20s at River Highlands in the 3 times that he has been there. He's also rattled off 5 top 20s in a row, 2 of those being in majors as well. So, Xander, hasn't been up there among some of the other contenders lately, but he's been very, very steady. And then I'm going to go with Patrick Cantlay, who would be the highest of my picks. I think he's at plus 1,400, 14 to 1 here. Started the U.S. Open with a 72 and then got better by one shot each round and ended up finishing T14. He's got top 15s in each of his last 4 visits to TPC River Highlands. However, he hasn't got a top 10 yet. He's got 4 top 15s, but he hasn't crept into the top 10 yet, but he's played this course very well. So I'm on Cantlay at 14 to 1, and then Xander and Burns both at 18 to 1, which means we have 6 of the top 10, I think, from an odds perspective right now for this event. So hopefully we're all over it, buddy.
Yeah, that would be sweet. By the way, don't bet Brooks Koepka at 39 to 1, folks. Brooks Koepka, you can take him off the board. I think he's still showing there right now, but I think we've seen the last of the Koepka brothers.
Well, I thought I saw something that they don't technically get until he plays. So somebody said they could announce that he's leaving and he could still play this week. But I have a feeling PGA is going to step in and be like, no, you're not, bud.
Beat it.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention.
All right,
Brooks,
let's wrap up with this.
I was just gonna say his entire show last week that he hadn't thought about it at all.
What a joke!
Maybe the biggest serving of bullshit we've heard from any athlete.
He's a clown,
like Ramon, in a long time. So, bye. Thank you for the wins in the majors. I appreciate it, but we're moving on to the guys that are standing.
Him and Bryson deserve each other in an exhibition golf series. That's just what it is. Seriously. PGA Tour, wipe your hands of those two guys. That's how I view it. All right, and NBA draft bets. We are not NBA draft experts, but we can read as many mock drafts as the next guy. So I do want to get into this a little bit, Huss, and you're looking at that first overall pick. What have you seen?
Well, I am. And again, you kind of nailed it. I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't been, pounding the pavement, scouting the NCAA hoop scene. But there's enough information out there to give you a pretty good idea about the way things are trending. And I have looked at numerous mock drafts, and just about everyone is very confident that Jabari Smith's the first overall pick. So when I looked at the odds and the fact that he's just minus 115, I was quite surprised at it and figured that's some good value. I'm a draft guy. I love drafts. Even if I don't know a lot about the players, I'll tune into the NBA draft and see what's happening later on this week. So give me Jabari Smith at minus 115. Little sprinkle just to have a little skin in the game for the NBA draft. If you do know about the draft, though, and I'll say this, plenty of props over under where guys are drafted. And as you're going to get to, not just the first overall pick, but third, second, fourth, and fifth, you can lay a bet on if you do have an inkling that a certain player might be set up for a particular team.
I watch a lot of Duke basketball, so I decided to take a couple of Duke guys here and lay it out. And I've got Paolo Banchero, who I think he's got first overall playing abilities. I think he's that good a player, but third overall, I saw a story in one of the mocks that I was looking at. Houston, who's picking third overall, and you can get Banchero right now at minus 167, which is where many people expect him to go. Houston went and worked him out at his home base, and then they brought him into Houston for a workout. And then after that workout, they went and traded their power forward for more picks. Their current starting power forward for more picks. So they basically already cleared his spot on this team. So I think Banchero at minus 167 is a good one. And then the other Duke guy that I was looking at, and he's an interesting, I watched him play the last few years, and he's not your typical guy who's going to have a ton of success in the NBA nowadays because, he's not that stretch 5 or stretch 4. He's an absolute giant. He's 7'1". He's got a 7'8" wingspan. And I'm talking about Mark Williams with Duke, and they've got him set up at 14.5 right now. So I take the over 14.5 because many people are expecting him to end up going to the Hornets with the 15th overall pick. And the Hornets also pick at 13, which is why this is kind of interesting because if they really like him, they could just take him at 13. They're also picking at 15. The team picking in between them is Cleveland, who already has a lot of big bodies. So they don't need Williams. So I think they might like him enough to take him at 13, but I don't think they'll have to. They can take somebody else there and then get him at 15, which will put him over 14.5 at minus 147. So, man, I'm like you, though. I love drafts, and I love the fact that we can bet so heavily on drafts. It's amazing.
Well, maybe not too heavily. But
Yeah.
well, at least for this one, I'm sure we'll have some fun for the NHL draft coming up in a few weeks out in Montreal. But yeah, just a little something to tide us over until Friday's show. Picks on the 3 more CFL games on the docket and the rest of the action on the weekend.
Winnipeg Sports Talk, buddy. What do you got coming up?
Chris Knuckles Nyland coming on the show today. We'll also hit the Canadian Football League with John Hodge, a 3 Down Nation. Scott Billick of the Winnipeg Sun as well, with a little more on the local scene here. And go see my good friend Emmett Smith tonight. Should be a lot of fun, and tell you all about it on Friday.
Yeah, have fun with that, man. It's going to be excellent. We'll have another episode of Lock Shop on Friday. As Huss mentioned, we'll be getting you ready for the rest of the games. We're breaking down some CFL action from Thursday and getting you set up for the rest of the week in the Canadian Football League. Once again, if you've been watching, if you've not yet signed up for an account at CoolBet, you probably know this. They're our presenting sponsor. So use the code LOCKSHOP when you do sign up so they know we sent you. Huss, I'll talk to you in a few days, buddy.
Take it easy, dude. We'll see you in the peg.